Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Shivasari, Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Okay, for the last couple of weeks, I've been working on something, trying to grasp a deeper significance. And what it was I was in a group and we were reading from Bhagavatam in the early cantos about the creation of the material worlds and the discussions of the different demigods and their jurisdictions came up. And in the particular verse it was mentioned that Agni, the demigod who manages fire, is in charge of speech, the speaking function. And I was like, whoa, what's with that? Fire connected to speech? And immediately I got these visions of flames coming out of dragon mouths, fire. But no, I wanted to understand how fire is connected to speech. I don't feel any fire. So I asked a question. I said, well, how is Agni connected to speech? And nobody knew, really. They didn't know. And it was embarrassing for the person who was the big honcho in the group. It was their group. Everyone huddled around to hear what they had to say. And all he could say was, I don't know. And he doesn't like to have to say that. So some of the other members, to cover his I don't know, piped up with, hey Lance, Hare Krishna. I was just going over something here. I was in a group and I asked a question that the head honcho of the group couldn't answer. And he was embarrassed. He said, I don't know. And he's the big guy. Everybody's huddled around to hear what he has to say. And big reputation for scholarly, academic, everything. And he had to just say there, like egg on his face, I don't know. So the question was the verse. I've been working on this for 2 weeks. Good morning, Jocelyn. Hare Krishna. Thanks for stopping by. So I've been working on it for 2 weeks because I want to know. I didn't do that to embarrass him. I'm sorry. I don't know what questions to ask that he knows the answers to so that he doesn't have to say, I don't know. I don't know which questions he can answer and which he can't. I just want an answer or some discussion on it. And nobody could discuss. Nobody knew. No insight, no nothing. No verses, nothing. And all he could say was, the leader of the group, the big guy, was, I don't know. So to cover that, to protect the big guy so he didn't look like, I don't know. So he didn't look like that. They came up with some verses that Lord Brahma quoted when Krishna revealed himself to him in all the cowherd boys and cows and calves that had been stolen, because Krishna expanded, and they were all Vishnu forms. Brahma had taken all the cows and calves and hid them in a cave, and Krishna didn't want everybody in Vrindavan to be all upset. What happened to the boys and the calves, and freak out? So he expanded himself into all the Vishnu forms. And he did that for a whole year. For Brahma, it was like a moment. But for the residents of Vrindavan on the earthly planet, it was like a whole year. So Brahma, when he saw that, it's like, wait a minute, didn't I put the boys and the calves in the cave? What, they're here, they're there. He ran back to look, yeah, they're all still in the cave. And then Krishna revealed that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he can do that. And they weren't the original cows and boys, calves and boys, but they had all the characteristics and properties and individuality of them, but they were Vishnu forms. And Brahma, boing, oing, oing, oh my God, what did I do? So he offered the prayer, some prayers, and part of it is, I don't understand anything about my Lord. I don't understand anything. I just take shelter at his lotus feet, and I can't understand. He's unfathomable. Okay. So when the leader of this group said, I don't know, they came up with those prayers to kind of cover his butt, like, he doesn't know. Oh my God, we have to protect him. So they started saying these prayers. They quoted, Brahma says, I don't understand. My Lord is unfathomable. And all I know is I take shelter of his lotus feet to kind of protect him, But I wanted to know. I wanted to know the answer to the question. So in kind of a snide way, it was kind of like taking a pot shot at me. The leader said, why don't you do some research and let us know what you find? But it was kind of snide, kind of snotty the way he did it. It wasn't like, we really want to hear what you find, because he felt challenged. And if I found the answer to something that he didn't know, anyway, I haven't gone to that group for a while. I'm giving it a break. I want to make sure I'm among friends, you know what I mean? But I still want to know the answer to the question. Okay, what was the question? In the verse, it's in the early cantos of the Bhagavatam, discussing the creation of the universe and how the different elements work together, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, the ether, the mind, the intelligence, and how the sense objects are connected and how the bodies are formed to interact with the elements. In other words, the mechanics of it. And at one point in this particular verse, Agni was described as being in charge of speech. Now, I've been working on this for 2 months. Agni, demigod in charge of fire, is the controlling deity for speech. And I'm like, wait a minute. What with this? Was the fire coming out? Agni, how does he fit into this? So I asked the question. I said, well, how is Agni connected to speech? And that was when he said, I don't know. So I've come up with something that more than I anticipated. By meditating on this and trying to understand this, I've come up with a lot more than just how does Agni relate to speech. That's like the tip of the iceberg. It's like you got a sweater and it's made out of wool. It's a knitted sweater and there's a little thread hanging. So, I want to pull that. Instead of you pull on the thread, the whole thing unravels. So it's like that. I want to know how Agni with speech, how does that, and pulling on that thread, and the whole sweater's unraveling. I want to go back to the group and share what I saw in this, but I don't know if I'm among friends, because I wasn't welcome to even ask the question. And then I was in a very snotty way, said, well, why don't you do some research on it? And I'm meditating on it, and I've come up with something that I'm really happy with. But to bring it back, you know, it was bad the first time. If I came back the second time with it, it's like salt in the wound, you know. So I don't know if I want to go back with it. But what I came up with is how the demigods, in control of with their different functions for managing the energies within, material energies within the universe, they all work together. Hey, Adi Kavi, Hare Krishna. They all work together. They all work together. So I was thinking, well, speech. There's a lot more involved in speaking. It's all connected. Like, first there has to be an idea. And that's the mind energy. That's a subtle energy. And there's a demigod in charge of the mind. A controlling deity in charge of the mind. So first there has to be an idea. And then there's a desire to express it or broadcast it. So there has to be a vehicle to do that. So you've got the tongue and mental function to form words. That requires mechanical, like you're on the subtle plane with the mind. But then there has to be vehicles. So there's the brain, and there's nerves and senses, and they're under the jurisdiction of different deities, different demigods. So how does fire enter into this? Electrochemical, electromechanical functions within the body. That's fire. It's not just digestion and hydrochloric acid. It's electrochemical. Anything electrical is connected to fire. It's all stored up energy of Surya, the demigod of the sun. It's all stored up energy. Like in wood, the tree was growing and capturing the energy of the sun, and then it either died or was cut down, and now that stored up energy of the sun is in the wood, in the tree. He stored it up. And it can be released, and the fire comes. It's all stored up sunlight, and that's Surya. So this electrochemical function in our body, it's stored up sunlight. It's very far removed, you know, because we're eating the plants that stored the sunlight, and then we're getting electrochemical activity. Hare Krishna. So that's Agni, the electrochemical function. And then sound, in order for to make the sound, that's another energy under the jurisdiction of other demigods. They all work together. In the body, all the demigods we're dependent on them for our functioning, for our speaking, for our digestion, for our mechanical movements. Tasting is water. That's another under jurisdiction for Runa, water, the tongue. The body has all water in it. Air, the vital air. Consciousness rides on the air within the body. And they all work together. So I was thinking, boy, we could learn a lot from them, couldn't we, about working together? Yeah. So it was like pulling on that little thread. Well, how does Agni, fire, enter into this? And all this stuff is unraveling. It's like, whoa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A lot of fun. Hey, Adi Kavis. Hello, John Masanya, Hare Krishna, Cynthia, Krishna, new grandma. Hare Krishna. Adi Kavi says, there is a fire of digestion. Prabhupada said, otherwise, how is there heat in the body? Yes, yes. Fire of digestion. And there's electrochemical function within every cell. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So the leader of this group that, kind of got caught off guard when he didn't know. It's taken me 2 weeks to really look at it, and so for him to answer on the spur of the moment was kind of, but I didn't know if maybe he had heard some discussions somewhere else that he could share, but evidently he hadn't. But earlier, like several weeks ago, when we started this chapter on all this really detailed stuff about the mechanics of it all, he kind of set the pace for it, and I really appreciate it. He said, so why is it necessary to understand all of this? Why do we even have to study any of this? Why do we even have to know it? Why can't we just do the juicy stuff? Why can't we just go to like the rasic stuff? Why do we have to know this? Why can't we just, go over there to that stuff? And he answered his own question by saying, because we're in this situation. We should understand our situation. We're in this situation. We're in this electromechanical, filled with water and air and fire, and we're in that situation. We've got one of these. So it's for our benefit to understand our situation and not to just jump over. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So I'm working my courage up to go back and try and share this. They're very academic, and everything anybody says has to have 12 million verses backing it up. And I really don't know if I want to try to say anything, but I'll keep chanting on it and asking Krishna if I should do this. Oh, Krishna. I don't know. It's not clear. Maybe just, let him be. I have to know I'm among friends to be able to do this. Otherwise, there's blood in the street, and it's mine. Okay, Adi Kavi. Here he goes. Fortunately, these things are going on automatically. Yes, fortunately, they're going on automatically. Yeah, can you imagine? I had it like, okay, now it's time to grow my hair. Okay, now it's time to digest my food. Okay. Yeah, where would be the time for Krishna? Yeah, they're going on automatically. We're indebted. We don't have to. I mean, we can hardly manage, getting up in the morning, at least some of us. I mean, can you imagine? Krishna, it wasn't automatic. It wasn't being managed by those more empowered to manage these things. Here he comes again, Adi Kavi. He's got good stuff. This is why we can't just skip to the 10th canto. Yes. Yes. No. And yet, Prabhupada was so Krishna, that even before he finished the entire Bhagavatam, I know he had the first three cantos, because he came from India with them in a rough state. Before he continued with that, because he didn't know how much time he had, he gave us the 10th canto. And as it is, he didn't finish the 10th canto with, word for word and Sanskrit and transliterations and big purports on each verse. He only got through, I think, the first 3 chapters or something. First 3. There's a lot of parts to the 10th canto. It's huge. He got through the first 3 parts. And then he left. But he gave his Krishna. And this is like one big long purport. It's like a big long purport on the 10th canto. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Make sure that, because that's the conclusion of it all. Just studying how things work and the mechanics and not this body. And that's good, you need that. But then not to give the conclusion, the personality of Godhead and his pastimes and activities directly, that would have been a terrible catastrophe. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. This is why devotee association is so valuable, even though the experience with the group tended to be a little rough. It tends to, do I dare say this, ignite the thought process, fire up the desire, and fuel the bhakti. I tell you, I'm really getting into it with Agni. I mean, he's too cool, really. It's his function, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. You got to be careful with them, though, because if you do the wrong things, you can get burnt out. Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar, Shivasati, Gaur Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna. I'll probably come back after a little while, if I haven't left my body yet with all this intensity, and do a little reading, but a few more rounds to chant. Thank you for letting me share that. Hare Krishna.